Welcome to another round of Master Phil in Your Corner. This is episode number 95, and today we have a very special guest. We have Vince Micco, who is running to be our representative in the U.S. Congress. Hello, Vince.
Hello, thanks for having me, Phil.
Great. So before we get into this, let's do some of my shameless plugs. This podcast is brought to you by philross.com for the best in training, either online, we can do in-person seminars, workshops, certifications, you name it, we have it. Come check out philross.com. I have a Patreon channel. We also have Fit Team nutritional products and the Under Project underwear. Keep you comfortable all day long. So, Vince, enough of that stuff. So you're going up against Bill Pascrell, right?
Yeah,
So
Bill
tell the
Pascrell.
audience, Pascrell, tell the audience about this guy's been
Well,
for 7 years.
so well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is
Oh,
great.
pleasure.
And I commend you for having this podcast and for everything you do. I'm really into a lot of what you do with your instruction. And so I salute you, first of all. My name is Vince Micco. And let's see, I'm an Iraq war veteran.
I was
I've done
just saying, let's tell everyone, because you got quite an extensive background, of serving our country, serving the community, taking care of the
Thanks.
people down in Rutherford. You have businesses going, you have a whole bunch of stuff going on. You've done so much good. So let's tell everyone, who is Vince Micco?
Sure. I appreciate it. So, my name is Vince Micco, and like I said, I'm an Iraq war veteran. I've served two year-long tours in Iraq, and I'm still serving now as an intelligence officer in the Army Reserve. As a matter of fact, I have Army Reserve duty this weekend. And when I'm not doing all of that, I'm a vice president at a bank where I specialize in commercial mortgage lending, and I've got 5 kids. So
God bless.
yeah, thank you. It is a blessing. And listen, I'm in it for all the right reasons. Our country, when you see the direction we're going, whether it's the economy, whether it's our military, whether it's culturally, all of the above, I feel I can either, get you mad at you, yell at the television, or step up and God willing, try to be part of the solution.
Yeah,
So
and that's the thing, taking action. You're taking
yeah,
action to the next level. I do some stuff locally. I'm in a county committee and so forth, so forth. And of course, I do my podcast, and people know where I stand. So I'm
I
not
love
not shy about it.
I love what you're about. I've been serving my country. I've been serving the Republican Party and conservative causes and my country, my entire adult life. Back in the 90s, 97 and 98,
Mhm.
I was actually the executive director at Bergen County Republican Organization. I worked for the county chair, and it was a great time. We had the governor's seat, we had all of the legislative seats, the state senate, the state assembly. Our Bergen County executive was Pat Schuber, Republican.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had the whole freeholder board. We had the sheriff and the clerk, and so I was a good foot soldier for the party. I worked full time for a couple of years.
Mhm.
I was also elected twice to become Bergen County Young Republican chairman. So, I was one of those crazy people at 3 o'clock in the morning with a squad of volunteers putting signs up on Route 17 and going door to door with candidates and staffing phone banks for candidates. And, that's just something that's been instilled in me ever since an early age. I'm first generation American. My dad's from Italy.
Where
But
in
one
Italy?
thing,
Where in Italy?
Caserta, which is about 40-minute drive from Naples.
Okay, all right.
So I grew up in East Rutherford,
Yes.
and I think my father's entire town from Italy, kind of navigated to East Rutherford
Yeah,
because
yeah.
growing up and going to school, I always felt like half of my grade were my relatives. So
It's funny because my ancestors, mostly grandparents, came over from Italy, uh, Naples, two from Calabria, one from Bari. My last name
that's
got changed, but they all landed in Paterson. That's where I was born.
uh, we owned an Italian cafe, Italian
Oh,
restaurant in East Rutherford my whole life. It was a great way
I was
for me to
probably there
learn.
at some point.
Yeah, it was a great way for me to learn how to speak Italian really well.
Mhm.
And So actually, on my first deployment to Iraq,
Mhm.
funny story, I encountered the Italian soldiers that were there under the
Yes.
NATO mission.
Yeah.
And, I was just walking past one in the desert one day,
Mhm.
and he must have thought, I was at a camp
Mhm.
where primarily foreign soldiers were. I flew from Baghdad to this other camp because the army was letting me come home
Mhm.
for 2 weeks R&R for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I'm in this camp where I don't know anyone. And so I walked to the big tent where they were feeding soldiers, and they had some TV where you could watch the news, find out what's going on at home. And I walked past a soldier with a dark olive green uniform.
Mhm.
And as I passed him, I saw the Velcro Italian flag on his shoulder.
Yeah.
So I said, "Buongiorno, come va? Mi chiamo Vincenzo." And his
Yeah.
eyes lit up, and he
Oh, yeah.
took me to his tent to meet the rest of the squad, and we managed to keep in touch and stuff. So
That's great.
my Italian's pretty good.
Yeah.
And but I grew up in South Bergen and played a lot of soccer. I coach a lot of soccer in Rutherford, and I've got 5 kids, like you said. So growing up, my kids, I was always their Sunday school teacher at church, and I was always their soccer coach on the
That's
field,
awesome.
you know,
That's
after
awesome.
school. So,
Yeah.
but my kids, they make me very proud. My 23-year-old son Vincent is actually on active duty in the Army now.
Mhm.
So he just got back from Korea. We got to fly to California to go see him
Mhm.
last month, and he's now stationed in Texas. He's doing great, and they we spend time. They still come to church with me. They
Yeah.
go shooting with me, at my gun club, and
And
they've
where do
even
you
my
belong? Which gun
I
club?
belong to Gun for Hire in
Okay.
Woodland Park.
Yeah, yeah. I'm over at Reloaders. My son came down from Maine, and what did we do? We went to the range and
Yeah.
for steak dinner.
My
It's
daughter's
a great
fired
thing.
all my hand in my 13-year-old daughter's fired my kids shoot my AR-15. And
Nice. Yeah.
so listen, that's what we're about. For God and country, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Here's the thing. I see. Especially if you pay attention to the mainstream media, we have gotten so far away from that. God and country. I mean, look, now when you put an American flag up, it triggers people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just ordered the "Don't Tread on Me" flag shirt because I want to
Sure.
wear it around.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just got back from the range, so I went again. I was doing some of my tactical shooting because I just love doing that. But there's such this mainstream culture against the Republican Party, and especially in this. I mean, we got a far left stronghold here in New Jersey. I mean, just
Yeah.
the fact that you look. I'm going to rank on Bill Pascrell a little bit because he's been in politics in this area for like at least 40 years, what I can
Yeah.
remember. I don't even know what he looks like. I don't see him doing
You
anything.
know,
I
he
mean, he was
he
mayor of
turned.
Paterson for a while, and then
Yeah.
and he's been in Congress for this district, and they
Yeah.
shifted the lines.
Sure.
But I don't see him doing anything. All I see is things getting worse and worse and worse, and it's
Yeah.
costing more and more and more. And why are people not turned on by the Republican Party? One of the things that I thought we were supposed to have talk about the red wave. I actually did a podcast on it, wound up being a pink trickle. But why is that? Why? What do you think? I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but I want to hear from you and what we
Well,
can do about it to
that's a
stimulate.
great question. I mean, I'm running against Bill Pascrell, who's been in Congress for 15 terms. He just turned 86 years old about 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, he and Joe Biden have had the majority of everything, uh, and they've made a mess. So, if you think about it, the Democrats occupied the White House when
Yep.
Biden got in. The Senate was majority Democrat, the House,
Yep.
and they made a mess. And it's time for fresh new blood to get in there, not career politicians. I've never held elective office before, but I hope you can hear in my voice and when I convey that I'm in it for all the right reasons. I've got 5 kids. I've been serving my country,
Mhm.
but and what I do in the military, I'm a counterintelligence officer, so I
Yeah.
have a top secret clearance. You don't need a top secret clearance to know, though, that our country and our military, we need to be focused on our adversaries, on Russia, on China, on Iran. And let me tell you, our adversaries, you don't need a security clearance to know this. Not only do they spend billions of dollars against us economically, militarily, but also culturally. It's very much a part of, say, uh, uh, Russian new generation Russian warfare to spend a lot of money infiltrating America to provoke and instigate problems and divisions, and they've done a really thorough job of that. I mean, Russian operatives, and this is not classified. You can read this and Google it. You know, they've been detected by our own intelligence services instigating problems at Trump rallies, at political rallies.
Yep.
So our adversaries, whether they're China, Russia, Iran, you know, they're playing on all cylinders against us. We need to recognize that. And it's no secret why we see a lot of this woke baloney agenda infiltrating not only our places of employment, but our schools where our children go, and even in the military.
Oh, yeah.
I still serve active in the Army Reserve. And on weekends, when we're on duty, or in the summertime, I've got 5 weeks of Army duty coming on in Alabama very soon. Instead of us focusing on our adversaries, on the latest tactics and readiness metrics to be able to confront our adversaries, I mean, we're sitting in PowerPoint presentations about how to react when you have a transgender person in your sleeping quarters or in your shower quarters, and the pronouns you have to use. And I mean, this is a bunch of baloney. We need to be focused primarily on defeating our adversaries, on readiness. You know, our military is going through a recruiting crisis, the Army in particular.
Oh, yeah.
And so we need
like 40%.
Yeah, we need fresh leadership in Washington, D.C.
Well, the other thing is too, is that what's it like between 75 and 77% of the people in this country age 17 to 24 are ineligible to join the forces. They're either too weak, they're not smart enough, and there's like 10% that have a criminal record. What does that leave?
Yeah.
And then plus the fact that, you know, they wanted this ridiculous COVID shot. I'm not even calling it a vaccine.
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
not. They wanted to do this. At least they rescinded that because they saw, you know,
They rescinded it, but we had to get it. Let me tell you, I had to get it. A couple of years ago, I wanted to go overseas on vacation to go visit my dad's relatives in Italy. And I didn't go because I didn't want to get the vaccine. And because they were tracking your passport back then, whether or not you got the vaccine. So I didn't go. But then by that September, the Department of Defense had mandated for the entire force, you're taking the jab or you're going to be chaptered out of the military. So we had to do it. And, you know, I don't know what good it did because, you know, last year, you know, the jab, the vaccine was proven with each passing period of time that we assess the results. It's been a fraud.
Of course. Well, here, I knew that it was fraudulent from the moment that they said we're going to eradicate this virus, because you can't eradicate this virus. I mean, I don't know how much you know about this. This is one of the things I do, because and they were saying it's like polio, like mumps, measles. Well, no, it's not, because those viruses are species specific. They reside in human reservoirs. Now, coronavirus, influenza, HIV, they all reside in animal reservoirs. They will continually mutate. It will always change. It'll never be eradicated. It's here to stay. But, and I called this out a while ago. You look at some other podcasts, and then we brought it up in another one later on. But I said, eventually, it's going to become less deadly and more virulent. So it's going to be more transmissible, but it's going to peter out into nothing but a cold, which
it resulted in economic catastrophe, political catastrophe, and now that was the premise for this vote by mail baloney that we're all
which has got to stop. It's got to stop. I'll tell you, I told my wife when they said when they went to vote by mail, I go, Trump's going to lose.
Well, there you have it. You were, you know. I've been deployed twice to Iraq. For my first deployment, I want to say lasted 14 months, the entire mobilization. My second lasted 12 months. And both of those years when I was in the desert from Iraq, listen, I was able to vote absentee.
Yeah.
So I would love to see us get back to, you show up and you vote at the ballot box, but if you can't do that, then you apply for an absentee ballot. That's the way it's
100%.
always been.
100%.
And there's no way that you can suspect fraud. I mean, there's enough fraud even with the existing system without going out and
Right.
inviting additional fraud.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of my employees, former employees, I used to run my fitness facility. Of course, COVID squashed that. But one of the guys working for me, he's Latino, and he goes, Jefe, look, I was talking, he's great. I love his kid. He's awesome. He's going to go places. Anyway, he told me that his family kept getting ballot after ballot mailed to his house. But he was a Trump guy anyway. But he goes, look at all these ballots. He brought them in. I'm like, and they never requested anything, and they got multiples.
Yeah.
How much did that happen?
Yeah. It invites, listen, it invites fraud, and there's always been a cloud now over our election results ever since they started with this, vote by mail baloney. Our republic has gone really well where people went to the ballot, to the ballot box or absentee ballot for all this time. And, anyway, that's, but
I'll say this. You don't have to say this, but I'll say it just seems like, 12 o'clock at night, the Dunkin' Donuts truck pulls up with a bunch of boxes.
You hear those anecdotes from around the country, and it just makes more people sour on the democratic process, and make people more cynical on their elected officials for allowing this to happen. And it's largely a consequence of COVID, despite the economic disaster, the catastrophe that resulted from COVID. And, that's one of the things I think I bring to the race is a level of credibility on economic matters. I'm a vice president at a bank, and I've been a banker for my entire adult career. And I've witnessed firsthand the dramatic steps that the Federal Reserve took. I get it, during COVID to try to protect the economy. The problem is these artificially low rates that they imposed for far too long, at least 24 months too long. Well, now this inflation problem that we have is a direct consequence of that kind of intervention. And, this kind of pain that the American people is going through because of inflation, because of the general state of the economy under the Biden administration. These are the things that the Federal Reserve was largely intended and created to try to avert. These were the smarty pants know-it-alls that got together after the Great Depression to try to prevent another Great Depression from happening. But, it didn't avert the mortgage meltdown in, 2006, 2007. In fact, a lot of these bad periods of the economy are imposed by the federal government, by bureaucrats looking out for the elitists. So one of the fires in the belly that I have running for Congress is I want to have a renewed and increased level of accountability and transparency when it comes to monetary policy, to the Federal Reserve. I don't think we can sustain. And the proof is in the pudding, because we're trillions of dollars in debt. Inflation, it's impacting everyone. And let me tell you something, it disproportionately impacts working class people that live in the 9th congressional district when they go to fill up their car with gas, or they go to buy a dozen eggs. I've got 5 kids. Do you know how much a dozen eggs costs at ShopRite nowadays? I mean, if you want organic or the free range, like the decent eggs, they're $8.
$7.99.
Exactly. So that's just ridiculous.
Here's something, here's something really cool I noticed. And if people watch this, many people will listen to it, but if they watch it, they pull up on YouTube or Rumble, they're going to see the sincerity in your voice. They're going to see how your demeanor, and this is, and I know where it's coming from, because honestly, look, if you're anything like me, I'm not worried about me. I'm going to be fine. I'm worried about our children. I had 3 kids. Okay, you have 5. You know what? I'm worried about their future. Are they going to have the same lifestyle, the same lives that we had? on this trajectory, they will not.
Mm-mm.
So the thing is and what the thing that's very frustrating is that, look, the Republican Party, the conservative movement, is very inclusive, yet it's being pigeonholed as not.
Mhm.
Now, we're they focus on these one issue, like here, abortion, for instance.
Mhm.
The way that it was positioned was all wrong in our state. They positioned it 100% wrong.
Mhm.
They were lying about it. About, oh well, they think this one should they should people should go to jail for having abortion. First of all, state of New Jersey has that full term abortion. You can decide to abort a child right as it's crowning. Okay, which to me is disgusting on more levels than you could think about.
Mhm.
Um, these are the things that they were putting forth and saying that the Republicans sponsor, and we don't. We're
All the
not
left can do is demagogue us and lie about us, or call us a racist, or call us
right.
transphobic, or we're mainstream, you
Yeah, I
know.
know.
And I talk to people, black people, white people, Hispanic people. They're with us when they know the truth. But
Right.
if they get
How do we
demagogued,
get
yeah.
how do we get the truth out there? Because the mainstream media twists everything, they chop things up, they throw it out there. And then look, I've had my podcast pulled from YouTube before
Yeah, yeah.
because of the way I speak.
With each passing year, people are becoming more cynical and they're not looking to news as the objective source of news that they used to. When we were growing up, and I had
Yeah.
when I was a
Walter
kid, we had a
Cronkite.
black and white TV with the antennas, but
Yep.
and it was just kind of like a Walter, very
Cronkite.
sober down the middle, delivering the news. But now it's just degenerated into something different, and that's
It's
why,
all op-ed. It's all
yeah,
op-ed now. Yep.
people are more cynical now and look into other sources of media or just tuning the media out, and then they're just relying on their friends to steer to steer them in the right direction at the water cooler at work or at the coffee shop,
Twitter.
because we're being force fed a narrative, especially if you're a Republican. We're being targeted as, you know, because if we're Christian, we're being targeted as hated,
Oh, I know.
as
Yeah.
hateful.
Yes.
And listen, we're the mainstream, and as Republicans, we need to reassert our rightful place as the party of the mainstream. The
Yes.
Republican Party is the one that delivered on civil rights for
Yep.
African Americans in this country.
Absolutely.
And the Republican Party is the ones that are trying to, when you look at the catastrophe that our borders become, and all of the fentanyl that's been coming in through the southern border, not to mention illegal aliens coming in. You know who's disproportionately hurt by that? Working class
Of
people and
course.
African American
Wait,
people.
I have a great solution. How about this? All those people dwelling in their basement that are just doing nothing. I say, you know what? We'll trade you. You guys go down to South America. Give me those people who want to work. I'll do
Mhm.
an even swap.
Yeah. Our adversaries know, though. Listen, the largest Russian embassy
Yeah.
is in Mexico. And you know why? Because of its proximity to the southern border. Because, in the intelligence business, our adversaries, they infiltrate. And like I said, it's not only they spend billions of dollars against us militarily and economically, but also culturally. And so fentanyl,
I was
fentanyl
just
is
going to bring that
largely
up. I was just going to bring up the fentanyl situation. Yep.
Fentanyl is largely derived from China, and they're an adversary, and we can, fool ourselves into thinking that they're not, but they are, and they have plans to take over and be the preeminent, the most dominant superpower on the earth to
Yes.
our expense, and they're working on all cylinders. So I recognize it, and I'm going to bring that recognition to Congress, and you're going to hear the fire in the belly and the passion when we talk about taking measures to protect the American people, whether it's the border, whether it's protecting our children
Mhm.
against this woke baloney agenda that's infiltrating our schools. And listen, whether it's protecting our rights too,
Mhm.
and
Oh yeah.
also for more transparency and more accountability with the Federal Reserve, because, we have a group of smart, know-it-all elitist bankers puppeteering the strings of the economy right now. But, we're paying rip-off prices for gasoline. We dealt with a logistical nightmare for years on the flow of goods into the country, and look at the price of groceries. Like I said, the price of the gallon of milk, the price of a dozen eggs. It's, ridiculous. We need to do something about it. And yet it's not like we have a whole lot to show for all of this pain and sacrifice, because our country is $30 trillion in debt. And we're up to about $112 billion that we've shelled over to Ukraine. So, I must have missed a memo when we adopted Ukraine to become the 51st state of the United States of America.
I'm finishing up my taxes. Can I claim them?
Yeah, exactly. We've got more dependents. Yeah, exactly.
More dependents now.
So, we've got plenty of our own problems to solve, especially low to moderate and working class people. African Americans are being disproportionately hurt by the policies of the Biden administration. And just a few short years ago,
Yeah.
the African American unemployment rate was the lowest in history since it was being tracked. And now all of those great metrics have been decimated.
How can we reach that community? Because listen, I have friends, uh, every spectrum you want, and most of my friends are of more of the conservative mindset, or at least a libertarian mindset.
Mhm.
But I see the African American, Black community, however you want to term, how they are just taken advantage of 100% by the Democratic rule. You look at every single Democrat-run city for decades and decades and decades, right? The people in that area are downtrodden. They're smashed. The
Mhm.
crime is off the charts, and yet they keep pulling the lever for the blue. I
Yeah,
don't get it.
yeah. I know, you're right. And, we've got our work cut out for us in
Yeah.
cities like Paterson and Passaic.
Mhm.
And what we need to do is just share. The church is a great resource. I teach a Bible study on Zoom every Monday night, most Monday nights for my church. And we get Hispanic, we get Black people, we get whites, we get all different, in the military. It's so remarkable about, at least in my observation, the lack of division among the races in the military. 2 weeks ago, we had a 20-year anniversary with
Mhm.
those of us that invaded Iraq together in
Yeah.
2003.
Yeah.
And it was so great to exchange hugs. And there's nothing like I don't know if it's the military or just that experience of going to war together.
Mhm.
But so many of my Black brothers and sisters that I served with, they know, and I know, we would do anything for each other. We would take a bullet for one another. And it's a shame you come home back to the United States and there's this division, but it's largely perpetuated by, like I said, the media, the
Mhm.
elitists that are in the media that, don't forget, for the news to sell advertising and to be exciting, there's got to be sizzle and there's got to be drama. There's
Yep.
got to be tension. And they go out and look for it and they
And they
disproportionately,
create it.
report on it.
I'll say they create it in many instances. And
Exactly.
it doesn't matter. They don't care if it's right. They just want to be first.
Hmm.
This is
And
this
I
is
think the African American community has had it too with the Democratic Party. With each passing year, they can see that, we, like you said, we give the Democratic Party our vote every year. What have they done for us? What have they done for us? And the answer is just not trying to throw money at problems, because the proof is in the pudding. It really has not.
oh yeah.
We have to roll up our sleeves and take our Black brothers and sisters by the hand, our Hispanic brothers and sisters by the hand, and we have to, be in their corner and
Mhm.
show them that we're one nation under God. And, if I'm
Because we
elected to Congress, that's going to be evident in my speech and my conduct every day.
they're trying to destroy our melting pot. We have a
Yeah,
melting pot in
yeah,
this country. That's what makes us
it's true.
great. And what they're doing, they're just putting us into these little boxes. Their intersectionality, everybody, because they're creating that whole and purporting that whole victim mindset.
Hmm.
Be a victor, not a victim. You know
Yeah,
what? we are the greatest country in the world. I want us to stay that way. And
Yeah,
we have to change this trajectory. We have to
it's
right
true.
this ship now. We got to get that message out. So, you know what? I mean, this has been a great segment, Vince. I really appreciate
I
you coming
loved it.
on. I believe this is going to go all over the place.
I appreciate the
And,
opportunity.
and you know what? We'll come on. You come on again. We'll get it out more. We'll get the word out more, and I'll be right there with you, helping you along on your campaign, because you know we need guys like you, people who love this country, love their family, love God, and love doing the right thing. Because that's
God bless you, my brother. I love you for saying that, and I love you for being in my corner. Listen, for
Pastor Phil in
anybody
your corner. Hey,
who wants to check me out,
yeah, I was going to
my
say,
website is vincemicco.com. Vince Micco, M-I-C-C-O. It's one word, vincemicco.com. Website is up. I'd be honored if you'd come over and kick the tires and check me out. And if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, then I'm hoping, God willing, that you could be in my corner.
what district?
New Jersey's 9th congressional district. So it's 24 towns in Bergen County. It's about 9 towns in Passaic County and 2 towns in Hudson County.
Great, excellent. Again, Vince, thank you for being on, and thank you, audience, for listening to us and getting to know Vince. You're going to see him again. This is Master Phil. Strength and honor.
Thank you, my friend.
Pleasure.